Okay, so I'm doing this video because there are a few YouTube videos out there that are just flippantly saying that the calendar is off by a month, therefore we're going to count from second Passover to get to Pentecost on this solar eclipse on the 21st of August. And can I just say that that has no biblical credence to it. They're just saying, oh, we're off by a month. And so I'm doing this video as a response for us to really truly discern what we're hearing. The calendar is not off by a month, but maybe the calendar that people are looking at is not the right calendar. And that, in what I'm saying, is the new crescent moon calendar. I believe that the real true calendar is the full moon as the new moon. And, you know, I think people are clutching at straws. And I've already done it myself. I've already done the second Passover count to get to Second Pentecost, to the solar eclipse. But you know what? It just seemed too easy. It just seemed too obvious. Because obviously I have the right to check from second Passover because of this timeline, being that this is second Passover count. But just to say the calendar is off by a month, it's just immaturity. You can't just say, oh, the calendar is off by a month and then make up your own calendar that is a month behind everybody else. It doesn't have any biblical credence to that whatsoever. And that's why I believe that when the solar eclipse happens on the 21st, you know, nothing will happen. Because I believe it's a red herring. I believe that that's what, it's like a test, you know. It's like, I don't know if you've ever done a maths test, but they give you these questions and then right at the end of the exam, there's this trick question. And I never realised that there were trick questions in exams until I discovered it myself. And this was at university. And I took a statistical assessment of mathematics. And it was the last question. And I thought, wow, this is wanting me to go down that way. But I don't want to go down that way because I know that really the true calculation is to go this way. And what happened was, I was right. It was a trick question, and it led the majority of every other candidate down that way. But I went to the other way, and I got a 98% pass rate for that test. The only reason why I didn't get 400% was because I spelt a word wrong. Okay, which, you know, is quite common for me. But I had the right word, I just didn't spell it right. So they had to dock me a couple of percent. But this is what I'm trying to say is that, you know, the Lord gifts us with understanding that is spiritual. And so we need to be able to recognize the times through that prophetic insight and not fall to the traps that are easy. You know, when I fell for the second Passover count myself back in the springtime that took us up to the solar eclipse, and I counted that and I showed you the count back in must have been at least May time or April, I can't remember when it was, but it was around May, June, or around that time that I showed you that count. And I said, you know, that this would tie in well with the Passover night, especially the second Passover night in the Gospel of John, because that's crossing over from the third night watch into the fourth night watch. But I didn't get any spiritual attack. You know, it was just too easy. But when I look at the timeline for the timeline to finish on the 5th of September and the new day beginning on the 6th of September, whoa, I get massive spiritual attack. I had this massive spiritual attack back in like the summer of 2016 because I had got this timeline back then that the Passover night would go from March to September in the 3 synoptic Gospels, and yet the Gospel of John, which is the top blue bar, would go on a month later to October. The reason why there's a difference in the Gospel of John is that we know in the Gospel of Mark, it says that Jesus was crucified at the 3rd hour, which is 9 a.m. in the morning, and that Jesus was still with Pontius Pilate around the 6th hour, which is around noon in the Gospel of John. So that's why there's this delay. And the night goes on until the 5th of October compared to the 5th of September in the 3 synoptic Gospels. Now, it's not because the calendar's off by a month, it's because there's a spiritual mystery in the Gospels. And this is only made known to us through revelation, not just by guesswork and trying to twist things to fit our agenda. Okay? This is really why we have to be careful what we go with and listen with. It has to be the source of the Spirit that gives us revelation and understanding. So this is why, obviously, I show you in this picture that when the night finishes, the Passover night of the 3 synoptic Gospels finishes at the 5th of September, then you have sunrise beginning on the 6th of September, but it's still Passover night in the Gospel of John. It's still within the 4th night watch. That's between 4 and 5 in the morning. And this is why we have the discrepancy in the Gospels of when Mary goes to the tomb on the first day of the week, and it was sunrise in the 3 synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark and Luke, it was towards the dawn, yet in the Gospel of John it was still dark. And this is the reason for it. It's not because the calendar is off by a month, okay? But I do believe that the new crescent moon calendar is in error. I don't believe that that's the calendar to go for. And as I keep saying, I say it again, if you really do want to hold to the actual sighting of the new crescent moon, then check out the blood moons, because apparently the claim is that all 4 blood moons fell on Jewish feast days according to the new crescent moon calendar. But if you look at TorahCalendar.com, you check out the 2nd and 4th blood moon, they don't fall on the Feast of Tabernacles. So, you know, please keep everything true to what you testify. It has to be true. You can't say that the 4 blood moons fell on Jewish feast days if they didn't. Okay? And that's on the new crescent moon calendar. And people know that I have been torn between the new crescent moon calendar and the full moon calendar for at least the last couple of years myself. Maybe 3 years on YouTube. But the reason why I believe it's the full moon calendar is because this was made known to me in 2012 when I found out about the blood moons coming up too. I believe that the full moon is the new moon. It's 2 weeks later than the crescent moon, and therefore the timeline is going to be 2 weeks later than what everybody else is anticipating. And this is confirmed in this timeline, because it shows us that sunrise doesn't happen until the 6th of September, and also that the 9th hour doesn't begin until the 6th of September. Now, when we talk about the 3rd hour and the 6th hour and the 9th hour, that again confirms that the day begins at sunrise, because it wouldn't be the 3rd hour of the day or the 6th hour of the day, or the 9th hour of the day, if we're not counting from 6 a.m. Okay, so this is why it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the day, and then nighttime is from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. And this is really how you can read the Genesis account of God working. He works between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's the hours for work, as Jesus says, are there not 12 hours in the day? And then there was evening, which is 6 p.m. And then there was morning, 6 a.m. And that is one complete day. You have 12 hours for working, and then you have 12 hours for resting. Between evening, 6 p.m. and morning, 6 a.m. Between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. is 12 hours of night time. That's for resting. It's very simple, okay? Starting the day from the evening beforehand is a load of nonsense. And I do hope that people wisen up to that. So not only is the new crescent moon calendar in error because it's not the new moon, secondly, starting the day from the evening beforehand is also in error, because you see it in the Gospels. If the day doesn't start in the daytime, then why are they calling it the 3rd, the 6th and the 9th hour? Why wouldn't it not be plus another 12 hours. So it would probably be at 9 a.m. in the morning would be the 15th hour of the day. You get 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which is 12 hours, plus another 6 to get to noon. You're looking at 18. So why isn't noon called the 18th hour? Okay, it's just common sense. It's common sense. I'm British, okay, so I can talk like this because I have this, noble sense of just wanting to use common sense. Even if you're not spiritual, at least use some common sense. And if you think I'm being rude, I'm not being rude. I'm just being honest and straightforward, which is what British people are like, I guess. Just straightforward. So this is why I believe that you can justify a second Pentecost count from second Passover because of this timeline. The first Passover is when Jesus eats the Passover meal with his disciples in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark and Luke, and he's betrayed in that night time by Judas and taken to the religious leaders and questioned, and in the morning he's taken to Pontius Pilate. Now, in the Gospel of John, when they had the meal together, it wasn't Passover meal that they had the meal together, it was supper, because it was before the Passover feast had begun. And yet Jesus is still betrayed in that same night. But what we have in the Gospel of John account is we don't have them watching and praying in the garden. Jesus talks about him being the true vine. He's talking about tribulation coming. And he also prays the high priestly prayer in John 17. And then it says in the Gospel of John chapter 18 that they go to the garden and Jesus is arrested by Judas Iscariot, taken to the religious leaders, and then taken to Pontius Pilate in the morning. And then we read that it says in the Gospel of John that the Jewish leaders didn't want to enter into the Gentile area of Pontius Pilate because they didn't want to defile themselves so that they could eat the Passover meal later on that day. So that's why we know that this is the 14th day, Passover. But what's not made known to us is which Passover. Is this now second Passover in the second month? It's a spiritual mystery that's in the gospel. So when Mary goes to the tomb after Jesus has been in the ground for 3 nights and 3 days, it's actually the first day of the week. The only way you can truly work this out as being possible is to understand that this timeline is a 3-year timeline. So when Jesus is taken to Pontius Pilate, is mocked, flogged and crucified, we have these 4 prenumbral lunar eclipses as markers for the second Passover night. And we have these 6 monthly increments for the night watches and the day watches, which helps us to see a time frame. Now that in and of itself is not enough. We do need to have a look at a calendar. And the calendar that the Lord's allowed me by his anointing and by his calling is to design a template for the full moon calendar as being the new moon. Now, I do have to give credit to the creatorscalendar.com that helped me to see a biblical template for the full moon calendar. Yet theirs is slightly different. They start their first day of the month as the Sabbath day, and therefore the first day of the week would be from the second day onwards, so that their 7th day Sabbaths is actually the 8th, 15th, 22nd and 29th. Now I'm going for the fact that the actual new moon as the full moon actually initiates the 7-day week. Therefore, so the 4 weekly 7th day Sabbaths would be the 7th, 14th, 21st and 28th days of the month. And I'm going to go to that calendar now and show you. Okay, so if you go to theovercomercalendar.com, this is the template that I'm talking about. So you have the full moon as the new moon starting on day 1 of the month, and then you have 7 days. Okay, so you have 6 days for working, then the 7th day is the Sabbath, right? So you have 4 Sabbaths in a month, and it's the 7th, 14th, 21st and 28th. Okay, it's very simple. You don't have to get like angles out like you do in the Enoch calendar and try and work out all the different. I mean, I've looked at the Enoch calendar videos and they look like some kind of advanced kind of mathematical challenge, to be honest. And it's not, it doesn't need to be that hard. Okay. So this is, as you can see, the Overcomer calendar that basically has any day of the week being the 7th day Sabbath according to when the full moon is. So when you know when the full moon is, you can place the full moon on the first day of the month and then you can template your calendar. It's very simple. If the full moon is later on in the evening on the UTC timeline, I always make the full moon day the next day, just to let you know. Okay, because for example, this one here on the 5th month, the full moon was on the 7th of August, but it was in the evening UTC time. Therefore, the actual beginning day would be on the first day would be the 8th of August. So that's how I've templated it. So this is really what I'm going to look at quickly and show you now is the 5th month. Okay, so this is where we are at the moment. Let me try and bring this down a bit. I don't know if that is going to go up. Will it go up? Yeah. So zoom out a bit. Okay, so what we have here, okay, is we have the first Pentecost count that takes us to the 10th of August. But we also have a second Pentecost count that takes us to the 3rd of September. Now, this is based upon the fact that Mary goes to the tomb on the first day of the week. So let's go to the first day of the week on the second Passover. Okay? So the first day of the week after the second Passover, so the second Passover would be the 14th day of the second month. So we count really 7 full weeks from after, okay, the 14th day. So it's from the 15th day because that's the first day of the week that Mary goes to the tomb. Right? Now I know people are thinking, well, didn't she go on the 17th day? But this is what you need to understand, is that the timeline is 3 years. Therefore, it is 3 days. So we're in the 17th day now. So we count 7 full weeks. So we go from the 15th day to the 21st day. That's 1 week. Then the 22nd to the 28th day. That's 2 weeks. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 full weeks takes us to the 7th day of the 4th month, which is the 15th of July. Then we need to count 50 days after the 7th Sabbath, right? So this is all in Leviticus 23. So we count 50 days from, obviously, after the 7th Sabbath. So beginning on the 8th day of the 4th month, which is 16th of July, we count 50 days. So let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. The 50th day takes us to the 3rd of September. Now, the reason why I have 1, 2, 3 there is because I believe also, according to this timeline that the Lord's given me, right, to share with you, to give you prophetic understanding of the time, not so that I can boast or glory in myself, is to help you as I sound the trumpet, to give you a biblical credence to why we're counting from second Passover, is because these are the 3 last days of the Passover night in the 3 synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark and Luke. It's also the last 3 days of the 3rd year. It's also the last 3 days before we hit the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. is also, as you can see, the beginning point of Second Pentecost, Second Shavuot, according from the count of after Second Passover. Now, the 3 solar eclipses, as I've already shown you in my chart here, is already the sign of Jonah. 3 years being 3 days and 3 solar eclipses being 3 nights. So we've already got the sign of Jonah. So when daytime begins on the 6th of September, and also the 9th hour begins on the 6th of September, we will have 40 days of glorified ministry that will lead people to repentance to complete the sign of Jonah. And that will end, for those 40 days, it will end on the Day of Atonement, okay, according to the Overcomer calendar. So let's just go to that now. So obviously from the 6th of September, which is the first day of the 6th month, which is the first day of Elul, okay, which is 2 weeks after the new crescent moon calendar. This is why I believe that when people are looking at the solar eclipse of things to happen, it won't happen, okay? I know it, because I honestly, I didn't get attacked. And I know that when you're onto something that's true, the enemy hates it and he attacks, and especially through the Jezebel spirit. I got so badly attacked last year by the Jezebel spirit that came into my life through somebody else. And, you know, I won't go into too much detail, but honestly, it was the worst experience of my life. And then again this year, as I've turned around from the new crescent moon calendar and I've set my heart towards the full moon as the new moon, according to the timeline as well, showing that the initiation point of the 40 days begins from the 6th of September, taking us up to the 15th of October as the Day of Atonement. I've got massively attacked again by the Jezebel spirit, trying to bring discouragement into my life and trying to make me feel, you know, just quenched. You know, she wants to silence out the true prophetic voice. She wants to silence it, she wants to stop it, and she wants to raise up her own who are not saying things right. They're twisting it. They're twisting things to make it fit into their own time frame or timeline, so that it will make everything else fall into disrepute. And that's what she does. She tries to raise up her own prophets who have like great influence and great kind of magnetism to them, but she wants to silence out the true prophetic voice. But you know what? It's like, this is what Jesus had to deal with himself. Whenever he spoke, he always said to his disciples, let these words sink deep into your heart. Let them go deep into your ears. Because he knew that the enemy comes and takes away the seed of revelation, of the prophetic. He comes and steals it. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus says, to the measure you use, like he says, take heed to how you hear. For the measure you use, it will be added unto you. So this is why it's so important to be careful to what you hear on YouTube. Now, as anybody knows, they know that I've gone through a process of the prophetic myself. But they will also know that I had this timeline way back in March. If anyone truly knows, they know that I've had this timeline back in March for the 4 blood moons, and the fact that the Passover night would finish in September the 5th, okay, going into the 6th of September, which is the new day. But since that time, I've also been able to develop an understanding of knowing that there is another night going on at the same time, which is in the Gospel of John. And that is a month later, from the 11th of April to the 5th and 6th of October. Okay, the 5th is the last day of the Passover night, and the 6th of October is the new day. So and when you look at the calendar, right, according to the full moon as the new moon, I'll go back to the first month, okay? just to show you this. The 11th of April is the beginning of the first month. And the 4 blood moons are also the first day of the first month for the first and the third blood moon. And the 2nd and 4th blood moon are the first day of the 7th month. That's why they're exactly 6 months apart. So again, it's the same pattern, the same time frame for the Gospel of John Passover night, that on the first day of the 7th month, which is the 6th of October, that is the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so I'm trying to help you to see a time frame that's truly biblical, that isn't just based on speculation or hearsay, and just make up something. Just say, oh, we're off by a month. The calendar is off by a month. Just because someone heard a voice and say, oh, the calendar is not this, it's that. Where is the biblical foundation to that? Everything has to be in Scripture to give it credence. And this is what I'm pleading with you. I know this is a long video, and to be honest, I don't really care anymore, because I've tried to get this message out for probably the last 18 months at least, that there is a dual Passover timeline that's in the Gospels. And it's a spiritual mystery that Jesus was able to eat the Passover meal with his disciples in the 3 Gospels, and yet it wasn't the Passover in the Gospel of John, and yet it's still the same night that Jesus was betrayed. And the reason for that is so that when you read through the accounts in the Gospel of John, he is able, therefore, to fulfill Passover as the Lamb of God on the 14th day. And the issue is, are we looking at the second Passover in the 2nd month? And this is what you need to look at and see, is that this timeline shows a 3-year timeline, 3 days, which is the first 3.5 days, you could say, of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, from the 14th day to the 17th day. So this is my exhortation and pleading, really, just to help you to see. Spread this word around. The earthquake is going to happen, right? Now, this is the key about the 9th hour. The earthquake is mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. It's not mentioned in any other Gospels. It's only mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew when the saints of old were raised in their tombs and they didn't come out until the 3rd day. Now, it says about the 9th hour. Okay, but in the Gospel of Mark it says at the 9th hour. This is what happened, you know, things happened at the 9th hour. But this is what you need to bear in mind, is that about the 9th hour is what I believe is just before the 9th hour begins. And this is why I'm putting that high watch time from the 3rd of September to the 5th of September as being a literal 3 days of darkness before the 40 days begins on the 6th of September until the Day of Atonement on the 15th of October. Now, we have had a 3 year, and which is 3 days, and 3 solar eclipses, which is 3 nights, sign of Jonah already. But I believe that that's been for the purpose of preparing those that the Lord is going to use for the 40 days. So we've already had our preparation process of going through the sign of Jonah ourselves. But for those that haven't gone through that sign of Jonah, they will have, I believe, a 3 literal day time frame of darkness. And I've had a couple of dreams where I've been taken at the onset of the darkness. And on the onset of the darkness on this calendar is the 3rd of September, which is 2nd Shavuot, the 2nd Pentecost from the 2nd Passover count. So the 3 days of darkness could be literal from the 3rd of September to the 5th of September, and then the initiation point begins of 40 days from the 6th of September. So I hope this helps get things out, because the solar eclipses are 2 weeks warning before the end of the 1st, 2nd and 3rd year. So can you see that? The first solar eclipse happened 2 weeks before the end of the first year, before the blood moon began, okay, because the blood moon would begin on the first day of the first month of that year. The second solar eclipse is 2 weeks before the end of the second year, okay, the 8th to the 9th of March, and 2 weeks after that, it's approximately 2 weeks gap, okay. And then the third solar eclipse is 2 weeks before the end of the third year. And this is why the last day of the night is the 5th of September, and hence the new day begins on the 6th of September. The new day is the 15th day, because this is second Passover, therefore it's the 14th day. The new day is the 15th day, which is Exodus. So it's both the 17th day, because it's the third day of this timeline, the third year, but it's also the 15th day because it's Exodus. It's also the 14th day because Jesus was crucified as the Passover Lamb of God. That's why no one knows the day or the hour, because if God said the day that he's coming is the 14th, 15th and 17th day, no one would understand what that meant. And this is really why I'm putting this video out today. I'm doing a live stream count for 21 days that will really take us all the way through this time period. Let me go back to the fifth month. Okay, so this is the 5th month, okay? So I'm doing a 21-day count really to the end of this time frame. So it may be that we may not make it the full 21 days if things happen on the 3rd of September, because that would be the 19th, 20th and 21st day of the 21-day live streaming that I'm doing. But I'm doing this streaming because I want to encourage people to truly keep themselves in prayer, which is by praying in tongues to strengthen your spirit man. This is the main purpose of doing the live stream. But I do these videos so that I don't have to talk so much on the live stream about the timeline, because I've already done that and I don't want to have to keep doing it every time we do a live stream. The purpose of the live stream is really for corporate time of praying in tongues together all around the world, live. But this is really a video just to show us that the calendar is not off by a month. You're in error if you want to just make up your own calendar and just put everything back a month based upon the new crescent moon. It's wrong. You've got no biblical credence to do that. And so you know, the only reason you can count from second Passover is based upon this timeline that shows that Jesus was crucified on the second Passover, which is the 14th day. Therefore, you can count from the second month of the 15th day, but I would say count from the full moon, not the new crescent moon, because you have 2 weeks after the third solar eclipse still to go. And that takes us to the 5th of September as being the last day of the third year, the last day of the Passover night in the 3 synoptic Gospels, and it really truly is the last day of the third day, you know, the 3 days of darkness. Potentially from the 3rd, which is the 3rd of September, which is second Passover count, to Second Pentecost, and then you have 3 days from the 3rd, 4th and 5th before we begin on the 6th of September. So I hope this has helped you to understand that really, truly, you know, this has come by prayer. It's not come by me trying to work things out. I've spent a lot of time in prayer, seeking the Lord, reading the Gospels through and allowing him, you know, to speak to me. And this has been my call as a watchman. This has been the timeline that the Lord's given me over the last 3 years, I'd say. You know, the revelation that the blood moons were 4 signs for the 4 night watches came in April 2015. Then obviously that we were going back into the day again of the 14th day, or going forward, you could say, into second Passover was on March 2016. And then this year I've had the understanding for the true prophetic count of Pentecost to take us to the 3rd of September based upon the full moon as the new moon, and therefore being able to create a calendar for that as the overcomercalendar.com, and also show that there are 2 nights going on in Second Passover. There's the Passover night in the 3 synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark and Luke, which takes us to the 5th of September, but then you do have the other night going on in the Gospel of John, which takes us all the way till the 5th of October. That's the only month discrepancy that we have going on, is between 2 nights, and that's why when Mary goes to the tomb, it was sunrise in the 3 synoptic Gospels, but still dark in the Gospel of John. And that's why that should help you to understand it. So when it goes dark, obviously, between the 6th hour and the 9th hour, that's between noon and 3 p.m. You could say that the first part is the daytime and that the second half is also the nighttime. But I've split it up using the 4 signs to be 4 night watches. Okay, so you could have another scenario of it just being daytime between March 2016 and March 2017, and then it goes dark from March 2017 to September 2017 on the 5th of September. Doesn't really matter either way, because we know that really the end of the night is on the 5th of September and the sunrise begins at 3 p.m, which is the 9th hour. And I believe that the earthquake really is about the 9th hour, meaning that it's about when the 9th hour is about to begin, is 3 days before. Okay, 3 days before the 9th hour begins is the 3rd, 4th and 5th of September. God bless you. Have a great day.